everybody. Cinephile Mike here, and today I am joined by filmmaker Guy Trevellyan, the writer and director behind the new horror short Plastic Surgery. This film has already made an impact on the festival circuit, including a Best Thriller win at the Holly Shorts Film Festival, along with screenings at Fright Fest Glasgow, Cinequest Film and Creativity Festival, and the Cleveland International Film Festival. Blending body horror with a real global issue, Plastic Surgery explores the impact of microplastics in a way that's both unsettling and deeply thought-provoking. Guy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
No worries. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, very excited to chat to you.
So, your film taps into a very real and growing concern around microplastics, but presents it through a unique lens. What was the moment where you realized this was an idea to work as a horror film?
Yes, really good question. I mean, I wrote it during COVID, so I definitely had disease kind of on my mind. And my sister used to work for this company called the Ocean Agency, which looks at coral reefs and it's the effect that global warming is having on coral reefs around the world. Um, and I kind of was launched into this very horrific reality of what life is beneath the waves, and especially with our own toxic creation, which is now floating around the waters all around the world, and posing a threat onto marine life. And then I watched this film, and not many people have seen it actually, which still blows my mind. But it's a short film by none other than Denis Villeneuve, called The Next Floor, and it's basically a horror short, but it's a metaphorical short. It's really experimental, and it really got my mind thinking. It's basically follows a group of people eating endangered species around a table. They're being waited on by loads of waiting staff and everything. And every time they eat too much, they break through the floorboards to the next floor, and they introduce one new person to the table, this woman who kind of is refraining from eating, and it's all about whether or not she's going to be tempted by the others to eat these endangered species or hold back. And the waiting staff represent Mother Nature, basically. So it's all about how nature can't keep up with the rate that humans are consuming the natural world. And it's just a very metaphorical short. I'd never seen anything like it. So that really inspired me to that, combined with my sister's experience from the Ocean Agency. And I knew that I wanted to do something around plastic pollution. And then I just came up with this idea of this hospital setting and this team of surgeons running around treating patients, and suddenly that's where the idea formed, all from that, really.
And how did you go about approaching, balancing the real world science with that heightened escalation as the film progresses? Because it's really unsettling how we're so grounded at first and how it kind of veers.
Yeah. I mean, for this film, one of the biggest challenges for me was the medical research involved, because I'm not a doctor. I don't have an experience in a hospital, so a lot of the writing of this and the directing of this had to come through lots of research, which meant sending the script to multiple doctors, nurses, doing a lot of hospital visits, having a medical advisor who was on set, and also we got involved in prep, who kind of basically, my pitch to the medical advisor Lizzie, who was fantastic, was, this is the scenario. What would an actual surgical team, how would they deal with this? And actually, the scary thing is that they had an answer for everything, which was scary in a way because it's almost like they're prepped for anything, which is quite scary.
Yeah.
But but it was a really great collaboration. And I think, again, whenever you're able to create a world which feels so real, and then throw these characters into this surreal world within it, it just makes it all the more relatable, but also it just makes it hit home harder, because it turns what we feel is real to us into something which is surreal, and then it makes it feel possible. So it was a big thing for me to make this hospital setting feel real and authentic, and all the terminology we used, from how they would actually speak to each other, how they would even operate moving a patient, how you would hook someone up to a ventilator, how you would attach someone to an IV, how you would take blood, there's all of these medical ways we really wanted to go into detail. So actually, it also meant hiring background artists who work for the NHS. So a lot of the background artists and extras in the film are actually nurses and doctors in their own profession. So what they brought to the film was actually their own, it actually made my job easier because it was less of me trying to direct them. It was more me saying, what would you do in this scenario? Okay, cool. Let me see how this works. And then tweaking their own authentic action to work for the camera and work for the main performance. So that was kind of how it progressed and how I kind of blended the two really.
And there's so much there with that. And then you added this fascinating extra layer with, our lead character, like on that last hour before she's getting ready to leave on her maternity leave. What
Mm.
drew you to that choice to help shape these emotional stakes?
Well, look, I would love to say that that was, it basically came through Anna. When we got Anna involved, Anna Popwell, who plays Dr. Terra, we had this really great phone call. We had this Zoom call together, and she revealed, I think it was towards the end of the call actually, that she was in fact pregnant and that she was going to be about 6, 7 months pregnant while we were filming. So the script before she came on board didn't have the pregnancy angle. It didn't have any of that. In fact, it didn't even have dialogue. It was a very different film. Um, and then when she came on board, she asked me, is this something that you're willing to incorporate into the script? And then I basically took that, went away. I rewrote the script kind of based around her, to be honest. And then we went from there. And from that came the idea that this person was on the last shift before they're starting this next chapter of their life. It adds stakes. It adds her to her character. The fact that she's a pregnant woman in this world, she's meant to represent Mother Nature. So, in a way, a pregnant woman is the best person to represent Mother Nature, someone carrying life, protecting life, but also trying to protect others with her profession. But it also adds a level of vulnerability to her character. And, with stories like this, it's such a big overarching topic of plastic pollution, but how can you tell it in a really simple way? And it's actually just through a character narrative, a character driven story following one character through this event. And actually that was the best way to tell the story. So yeah, really that angle all came through Anna, to be honest. And then I rewrote it for her.
Nice. And as you were shaping the story and getting ready, so you've had the opportunity. You've quite an impressive resume. You've worked on some of my favorite films of the recent few years. So, and congratulations with this being your film debut as a director. So, as
Mhm.
you were working on plastic surgery, how did the experiences you had working in your other capacities prior to this help you when you approach stepping up into the director's chair?
Massively. I mean, I think, working as an assistant director, you have a great window into all forms of filmmaking, but also the ability to be on, next to these incredible directors and titans in their own right in the industry and see how they work, see how they approach problem solving and patience, and you can kind of whittle down, you can almost kind of take the things that you like from each director and blend them into something that works for you, and you can see also the things that you don't like and the things that you want to avoid. And like, for example, I really like the way Greta Gerwig approaches a set. She very much trusts her DP with the visual, but then she actually sits underneath the camera and just watches the actors, which I felt really interesting. And then you've got on the flip side directors like Wes Anderson, who will very basically their world is so much in prep. It's prep, 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 and that in that sense, he creates an animatic for the entire film. So the film is already laid out in his head in the edit, which is something that I really took into my own style. The fact that when I approach a scene, I have the scene edited in my head. So it also makes it better for performance because you might do one take as a master where you try and capture the whole scene in one to help them get into something, but really, that certain elements are only playing for certain points of the scene. So you focus on those elements, you focus on those moments, and you build coverage from that. And actually, my goal is always to try and limit coverage, to be honest. I mean, if you can tell a scene in one shot, then great. You can do a lot with storytelling there. But so I took a lot of inspiration from these directors. How they talk to actors, how they collaborate with their DP, their gaffer, how they talk to each department. In prep as well, seeing how they would communicate with hair and makeup artists, costume artists, all of these things. Yeah, it's really brilliant. And I think the main thing that I took was just the fact that, the best directors are the ones that see a project in a film that maybe they've written themselves, but they see it as a team collaboration. It's not an individual vision, it's a group vision. And you're bringing all these amazing art forms to kind of work together on screen. So, yeah, I mean, I think working on the as an assistant director really helped with that. Also meant that I've got a kind of idea in my head of how, because I schedule my own shoots basically. I've got a first AD obviously who comes on board and helps me, but I often will schedule my own film, which would surprise you to know a lot of directors actually do that. Like there's and it's an interesting element, additional thing to that. Wes schedules his own shoots pretty much. He's really involved in the schedule, and then there's some who aren't. But yeah, so yeah, I took a lot of inspiration from that.
And talking about all those collaborations, there's a couple that I want to talk about that really stood out to me with plastic surgery. And I want to be careful not to spoil too much here, but the practical and the visual effects were so incredibly effective. Can you talk about some of the conversations you had with Rebecca, who's in charge of your makeup and your prosthetics, to how you found
Yeah.
that right aesthetic of grounding
Mhm.
things, but still making it feel like, ugh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, Rebecca's amazing. I worked with her on another short called A Matter of Minutes. And actually, what drew me to Rebecca was the fact that she was able to. The film Matter of Minutes is all about an anaphylactic attack. So there's stages to that, right? The beginnings of a rash, the starts of the cysts or exterior kind of rashes and warts, and then it builds and builds and builds. So what I really liked is how Rebecca was able to show that progression, and that scale in prosthetics. And that's something that I really wanted for this, is because I wanted to kind of build, as things went on, and then we kind of end with the big kind of Dante's Inferno scene, and then we're with Anna, and Anna's own prosthetic is very different from the others, because she represents Mother Nature. She's kind of like the ocean, and so in that sense, we wanted to pick. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically, we knew we wanted these patients, these plastic patients. So we just looked at ways that plastic transfers into the body, and then we developed on that. Areas that plastic transfers. Through breathing, through drinking, eating, the stomach, all these things, the brain. Clothing, through our skin. So in those ways, we then took everyday objects that you use in your home, or things that you interact with on a daily basis, including items from COVID, like syringes and packets and surgical gloves and all those kind of things. So we really played with that. And again, I told Rebecca, don't, go all out. The way we film it will limit the audience's view or perception of something, but I needed her to really enhance those prosthetics to another level. So yeah, we had, and it just helps. She's got her own prosthetics house, so all of those prosthetics are built from hand. They're not purchased, or they're all built from hand in her own studio. And she crazily did it within a week, which is
Wow.
mental. And actually, all of those main prosthetics that you see in like the main, even the throat gag, and then when we're in the main ward, that was all filmed in one day. So it was quite a big day for us. I think we had 13 or 14 different prosthetics.
That's impressive.
But yeah, it was exciting.
And the other collaboration, in addition to that, the score was really
Mm.
heightening the tension beautifully. I was getting hints of Bernard Herrmann. I was getting a little psycho in there. How did you work with Michael Llewelyn Baker to really find the right tone for this?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I took a lot of inspiration actually from I think it was something that Christopher Nolan said about with his collaboration with Hans Zimmer, where he basically said, um, you know, I'll tell you the premise, what's the themes, but I won't give you the script or the story. So we did a similar thing with this. Like I told him the world, the place that we're set in. He then came back to me with I think it was the credit scene first, which was very much strings. It was a lot of strings. And I told him that I wanted something kind of 90s horror nostalgic feel to this.
Mhm.
So he gave me kind of a lot of Halloween inspiration to start. And then we knew that we wanted to build tension throughout. We wanted to have an underlying theme that we could come back to. So he really built on that. And then we also added in this kind of eerie prayer, which is kind of the moment that we're in the kind of Dante's Inferno hospital ward. And the idea behind that was that I had this kind of vision that we were basically Dr. Terra's eyes going around this room, watching and witnessing all of these things. So we see her breathing, we feel her breathing. So he wrote this kind of prayer, this very ominous undertone, bassy kind of music towards it. And then when she chooses to make a decision, I won't say what it is, but when she makes that decision, we go into this very more kind of fast-paced, inspirational beat where she's taking action into her own hands. So we took a lot of inspiration from Interstellar in that as well. So yeah, we pulled from a lot of things actually, but yeah, Michael really went to town with the music, and it was great. We got the Budapest Orchestra to record it, so we had their whole orchestra in Budapest scoring it, which was a dream, and yeah, it was really really fantastic.
So I want to talk a minute about your production company, Nice Guy Pictures. So Nice Guy Pictures has a very clear mission around telling stories that explore social and human issues. And I mean, I can see where plastic surgery fits into that. And I'm curious, how do you see, or if you want to talk about any of the other projects you have coming down the pipeline or how they connect to plastic surgery? Because I was looking at the website and it seems like there's some nice solid things that are coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, thank you for looking at that. Yeah, so we got various things in development. I just wrapped on my next film called The Act of Learning, which is that looks at a human issue. So that's more of that's a personal thing to me. It's all about undiagnosed dyslexia. So that looks at neurodivergence. And it's set in the kind of mid 90s. It's a kind of coming of age fantasy drama. Pulls on a lot of my own experiences as a kid growing up with dyslexia, but yeah, so that ties in. Again, both of these projects are charity backed, charity linked, which is something that I always kind of have as a back thought with anything that I write. And then we've got a few other big things in there. Again, two more environmental projects. One is a kind of environmental thriller animation called Haven, which is really exciting. I won't reveal too much about that, but it's set in the future, and it's all underwater. That's all I'll say about that one. But then the other one is called the White House, which is that one again is all about coral reef bleaching and stuff, but it puts it into a human perspective and a human world. So yeah, again, these are environmental issues which we bring into a human focus. So again, just like plastic surgery, which looks at an issue that faces marine life, our own toxic creation, but it reminds us that that threat is much closer to home, and is actually threatening our own health. So similar with these other stories, I'm trying to tap into that kind of narrative. And if you can combine genre filmmaking, horror, thriller, fantasy, sci-fi with elements of environmental and really stories about human issues and human vulnerability and fragility, and you can come up with something pretty pretty amazing. So yeah, it's all exciting things coming up for sure.
Nice. And we need to hear from more of the nice guys out there.
Yeah, definitely. That is our ethos. That is our ethos.
So, one more question, because I know I have to let you get going. So, when audiences watch plastic surgery, what is something you hope stays with them beyond the horror? That stays, but
Mhm.
something they walk away from, have a conversation about.
I think it would just be a heightened understanding of microplastics and its threat on our health, an understanding that this is our own toxic creation, but it's also something that we can try to avoid in our own lives and something that we can try and limit. So I think the hopeful side to it is that I hope people start to research it, have a look at it, and maybe people might make one little change in their everyday life, surrounding plastic and instead of buying that plastic water bottle, you buy a canned bottle or you buy a water bottle and then fill up at a fountain, just some small things. I find that the small little acts are actually much more powerful than we think because there is wider governmental and organizational and companies and corporations to make change and also make it possible for people who don't have that opportunity, people that don't have access to clean drinking water, for example, who don't have the chance to other than buying plastic water bottles. There is another level of action that needs to happen there. But yeah, I just hope people come out of it with maybe a slightly more of an understanding and a heightened awareness of it. But I hope people don't feel guilty or feel that they're to blame because that's not the point of the story really at all. But yeah, so hopefully that's what people take from it.
Well, I will say, and I said it off camera, that's something I took from it because after watching this, I hit the internet because I wanted to read more about it. It was fascinating.
Yeah,
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Great. Yeah, really great. Well, thank you for doing that. Honestly, that means everything.
And Guy, thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with me about plastic surgery. It's really, again, it's striking, it's thought-provoking, and there's some beautiful craft work behind it. So, for everyone watching, plastic surgery is currently making its way through the festival circuit. Be sure to keep an eye out. We will put all of the social media links and information about the film in the notes on this episode. As always, if you like the conversation you heard here, please make sure that you comment and subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more film reviews coming. We're just getting into the new award season, believe it or not. There's going to be festival coverage, filmmaker interviews, spoiler-free reviews. Guy, again, thank you so much. And to everyone, take a break and watch something new. Guy, have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.